Hello, this is Dele Ayimibo. We are still on the series on letter of credit, and we continue the discussion on the fundamental principle of letter of credit. Having discussed the different types of letter of credit, this time around we'll be talking about the fundamental principle of letter of credit. Letter of credit have two fundamental principles, and one is called the principle of autonomy, while the other is the principle of strict compliance. Principle of autonomy, principle of strict compliance. How does this work exactly? Principle of autonomy says that a letter of credit is independent of every other contract or agreement that it may relate to. Every other contract or agreement that is related to letter of credit. Now, letter of credit itself is an agreement, it's a contract between the exporter and the importer's bank. Now, between the importer and the exporter, there's an agreement. Between the importer and his bank, there's an agreement to issue the letter of credit. Between the importer and the exporter, there's an agreement for sales of goods. Between the importer and his bank, there's an agreement for the issue of letter of credit. Between the exporter and his bank, there could be an agreement if it's funding. Between the issuing bank and the confirming bank, if any, there is an agreement for them to be confirming. And sometimes even between the exporter's bank and the confirming bank, there could be an agreement. So you can see a lot of agreement around a particular letter of credit, and there is a letter of credit in between all that. The principle of autonomy says that no matter what happens in all the other agreement, that letter of credit is independent of those other agreements. Now, the implication of that is, if the exporter ship a low-grade product, the issuing bank cannot fail to pay on a compliant presentation under the guise that the goods delivered by the exporter is of low grade. Why? Bank deal in documents and not in goods. The agreement between the buyer and the seller deals with what the goods should be. The letter of credit deals with the document to be presented. So you cannot, because of good being defective at the port, not pay on a complying document. And that's the principle of autonomy. Now, I know you will say that's callous, and because if the guy has not shipped the right product, how come we're going to be paying him? But the importer have option to prevent that from happening by just getting a third party to do the inspection and ensure that that kind of document is called for under the document he presented in the letter of credit. So it can be avoided. So if he has that option and he has chosen not to incorporate that option in his LC, then he cannot hold the bank responsible. The second principle is called the principle of strict compliance. Letter of credit is also called documentary credit because it's documentary in nature. Payment is going to be made strictly based on document presented. Now, the implication of that is this: all the terms and conditions on the letter of credit must be fulfilled. All the terms and conditions must be fulfilled. So the exporter presented document must cross his T's and dot the I's. The document must be compliant, number one, with the terms of the LC. Number two, with UCP 600, that's the Root Guide Letter of Credit Operation. Number three, with ISBP, that's International Standard Banking Practice. International Standard Banking Practice. Now, so meaning a document that is not compliant is a document that fails to comply with the terms of the LC. And then UCP 600, and of course sometimes International Standard Banking Practice. So that's the document of strict compliance. The document must strictly comply with the terms and conditions surrounding the letter of credit. Remember, two principles of grand letter of credit: principle of autonomy, principle of strict compliance. Thank you very much for listening.